So dear friends, so dear friends, so we'll begin with the 3 sounds of the bell. Come back to our body, come back to our breathing. Enjoy this present moment. We can let go of the idea that we are someone, that we are a species, that we are a person, and that this lifespan is limited, and fully dwell in this present moment, just with the breath and an awareness of our body. So dear respected Thay, our teacher, dear respected Sangha, dear noble Sangha, welcome to the last day of our retreat. Allow Mother Earth to walk for you. It's the 25th of August and we're in the Ageya Wilderness Center in Homer, Alaska. A few years ago, our teacher composed a love letter to Mother Earth. Since September the 11th in 2001, our teacher has encouraged many of us to write love letters to a terrorist. And that is an exercise in deep looking and compassion. It is not difficult to have compassion for those who we love. It is not difficult to have compassion for those who are kind. But it's a little bit challenging to have compassion for those who conspire to kill people, to kill other human beings. And I remember when we were in India in 2008, and they asked our teacher to be a guest editor for the Times of India for one day. And of course that meant that Thay was presiding over being editor, but the rest of us were underneath kind of like actually coming up with the content for this. I think it was like 6 pages of the Times of India that day. It's one of the papers with the largest circulation in the world. And we published many of these beautiful letters to terrorists. At that time, there were causes and conditions for both Muslim and Hindu extremists to bomb mosques or temples, to exacerbate, to aggravate the hatred between different ethnic groups, different faith believers in India. And I admit that until that point I didn't actually read many of these letters, and I hadn't written one myself. But that experience of helping to produce these 6 pages or something of the Times of India, we were camped out in the computer room in a hotel in Delhi because we didn't have an office to. The Times of India didn't give us an office to work in to edit these 6 pages of the newspaper, but instead we just kind of occupied the kind of business room in a hotel. We weren't even staying at the hotel. I think we had to pay to use it for that day. And so I ended up reading some of these letters, and I was deeply moved by the insight and the compassion that mostly lay practitioners in our community were able to produce through these love letters to a terrorist. And so somewhere around 2011, 2012, Thay produced a love letter to Mother Earth. It was Thay's deep looking into our situation, the situation of the Earth, that we are part of the Earth. And Mother Earth is there for us. Thay had that insight. He was sitting one day and he asked, as he was composing this love letter to Mother Earth, he asked himself, Mother Earth, are you there for us? And right away he got the response, yes, I am there for you. He looked deeply in himself because Mother Earth is in every one of us, in every cell of our body. So he doesn't have to look up to the sky or look down at the earth to ask Mother Earth a question. But he holds the question, he can hold the question right in his heart. And so Mother Earth responded, yes, I am here for you. And then she paused for a moment. And she said, yes, I am here for you. But are you there for Mother Earth? Can Mother Earth trust in you? That is the question that Thay received back from Mother Earth. Yes, the Earth is here for you, but are we there for the Earth? And so that is a question that I'd like to invite us to hold in our heart. Just for fun, I wrote a poem on the board here. It's by a poet named Gary Snyder. Maybe some of you know him. Earth verse. Earth verse. Wide enough to keep you looking. Open enough to keep you moving. Dry enough to keep you honest. Prickly enough to make you tough. Green enough to go on living. Old enough to give you dreams. So when we look in our heart, we find Mother Earth already there. Whether we're a poet, like Thay, like Gary Snyder, or whether we are just another ordinary mortal on planet Earth. We all, without discrimination, have Mother Earth equally present in every cell of our body. And that is not difficult to see. It just takes a little bit of breathing, mindful walking, and you already see it right away. It's not something you need to grasp after or spend your life trying to attain. And a retreat like this is an opportunity for us to allow that Mother Earth nature in us to manifest. It's actually already manifesting. We're just recognizing it. We're no longer simply allowing ourselves to live in our delusions about who we are, about what we are, about what we're doing. But we are letting go of that, all those concepts and notions, and allowing our innate nature to shine forth. That is the practice of awakening. So as we already shared, there's an intimate connection between happiness and suffering. Thay often spoke about it, about happiness and suffering, as two sides of one coin. If you remove one side, then you also remove the other. You cannot have the coin without the two sides. And that upends most of our ideas about suffering. It upends most of our cultural baggage around trauma, around violence, around hatred. It allows the possibility for violence to coexist in our heart with peace, for example. That's very controversial. But when Thay came to the United States in the 1960s, he was asked to participate in a number of peace walks, peace marches. And one overwhelming quality he noticed about the peace march was that it was not very peaceful. So whenever we step back, or we have someone like Thay coming from Vietnam to look at things from a distance, we see things quite differently than how we experience it when we're in the midst of it all. So mindfulness helps us to a little bit step away from the day-to-day habitual cycles of our thinking, of our acting, of our speaking, so that we can look and see what is there with the eyes of understanding, not just the eyes of attainment, of attaining our objective. Usually we just want to get things done. We have our list, boom, 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 I've completed my list. Joe is reaching over to Sharon. Without lists, I'm not sure this retreat would have happened. I have to be fair. So lists are not bad, but when we look into our mind and we see what is going on there, when we want to finish this, complete this, we start to understand our mind. We start to understand what is true happiness, which our teacher called the art of suffering, true happiness. And we also see that we don't need to create more suffering, as Thay shared yesterday. There's already plenty of suffering in the world. Already we accomplish a lot moment to moment by not adding to the suffering that is already there. So by looking into our habitual tendency just to get things done, we can often see that some of those things are actually not bringing us happiness. So it's not about checking off things on the list, but it's about looking deeply to see, is this bringing me happiness in the present moment? Do I feel happy writing that task on my list? If I feel a feeling of dread and fear, it's an opportunity to look deeply and see, do I really need to do this? To look deeply at those fundamental assumptions that we have, that I need a job, that I need to be productive, that I need to be number one. When Thay went to the World Bank in 2013, he asked a lot of high-powered World Bank staffers, you have to choose. Do you want to be number one, or do you want to be happy? You have to choose. And that is an invitation. Most of them wanted to be both number one and happy. And they get a little bit upset at Thay. Why can't I have both? I want everything. I want to be number one and I want to be happy. But it invites a deeper question, which is, what is number one? What does it mean to be number one? Who is number one? So there's this intimate connection between happiness and suffering. And so if you just push away suffering, you also push away your happiness. In Plum Village, our practice is based on the practice of mindful breathing. And mindful breathing is a path of cultivation. As I shared yesterday, when our teacher discovered the ancient sutra on mindfulness of breathing, it was the happiest day in his life. Because despite all of his deep study of Buddhist psychology, he hadn't arrived yet at transforming his despair about the war in Vietnam, about the loss of his mother, the death of his mother. But when he discovered that sutra, he had a path. So I'd like to share a little bit about that training of mindful breathing. So it starts with the practice of being aware of our in and out breath. As I breathe in, I'm aware I'm breathing in. And as I breathe out, I'm aware I'm breathing out. You can stay on that for a long time. Just breathing in, breathing out. You don't even need to say in and out mentally. When you go deeper, you may just maintain your awareness on the in and out breath as it comes in and as it comes out. Right away, that calms your body and mind. When we are born, we begin breathing, hopefully. If we're still here today, that means we started breathing. Not all children do, but the ones that are still alive, they do learn to breathe. And that is a miracle. If you are a midwife or you've given birth, the miracle of your child breathing for the first time is a wonder. And yet we forget that wonder in our doing, our getting things done. So the Buddha offered us to start at that point of coming back to the wonder of our in and out breath. And we continue by following the in and out breath. So it's like if this marker were my breath and my finger is my attention. So on the in-breath, my attention stays with the breath for the whole length of the in-breath. From the moment it comes in through my nostrils and fills my lungs, and then the same with the out-breath. As our lungs expel the air, my attention stays with the breath as it comes up through my throat and out again through my mouth or my nose. That is following the in and out breath. So mindfulness of the in and out breath helps us to generate the energy of mindfulness. And following the in and out breath helps us to develop concentration. Concentration is maintaining our mindfulness over time. It's maintaining awareness of the object of our meditation over time. Very simple. It's not scrunching your brow up and trying to focus deeply on something, but it's merely maintaining mindfulness over time. So in a retreat like this, we can benefit from the collective energy of mindfulness. We practice to reduce the distraction. We learn to put down our cell phone. Just be aware of the fireweed, seeds blowing through the air, the sun rising and setting, our step on the earth. That develops our concentration. So that following the in and out breath then can be applied to other parts of our life. Our anger, we can have anger come up and maintain our awareness of the anger throughout its whole course, throughout its whole manifestation. And then we begin to understand it. So following the in and out breath is a starting point for a deeper understanding of our mind. Because we know that things don't just come from nowhere. Our emotions need food. Everything that manifests needs food. The fireweed needs enough cold in the winter. It needs good soil, rich soil, in order to sprout and blossom forth in the spring. and then offer its seed for the next generation. And that seed becomes the condition for next year's fireweed to sprout up. So with concentration and following the in and out breath, we learn to see the nature of arising and passing away of things. We see that everything requires nutriment. Things arise due to causes and conditions. And that is a deep, deep insight. If we don't follow the phenomena as they manifest in our consciousness, we miss that. We just live in this moment-to-moment disconnection. We don't see the deep, intimate connection between things, which we call, when this arises, that arises. When this comes to be, that comes to be. With the passing away of this, there is a passing away of that. That is a kind of very basic formulation that of the insight the Buddha had that led to his awakening. He saw that things arise due to causes and conditions. Most of our suffering comes from thinking that things come from nowhere. And from nothing they become something suddenly. And then that something then goes back to nothingness. And that is a deeply wrong perception, a wrong view. So personally, following the in and out breath can have very deep, for me it's had very deep implications in my path as a practitioner. It allowed me to stay, by staying with my breath, I learned to stay with everything that manifests and to see its deeper nature. So the third step of mindful breathing is being aware of our body. We allow the energy of mindfulness to fully embrace our body. It means a kind of radical acceptance of our body. We tend to have notions about our body, and those notions are reinforced by what we see. Maybe we see somebody who's dressing their body like that. They have these clothes. We want to have clothes like that. Maybe we think our body is too round, too fat, or too skinny, not beautiful enough. We look in the mirror and we compare our body to other bodies. Even now, we know that many of the bodies that we see, whether on the internet or on the ads, are not even real bodies. They've been digitally altered to conform to a concept, a collective ideal of what a body should be. And then we try to make our body like that. And that is a massive source of suffering. Bulimia, we could go on and on with all the suffering that creates, including we can kill ourselves because we are not satisfied, because we compare our body with another body. And so this third step of mindful breathing is accepting the body just as it is. This form of the body, I accept it 100%. I have no reservations. As long as there is some part of our body we don't accept, then we will have suffering. So, Thay, our teacher said, be beautiful, be you. We are beautiful just as we are. The grizzly bear is beautiful just as it is. It's not terribly concerned about looking like another grizzly bear. is more concerned about eating salmon. Eating enough salmon to get through the winter, right? So how did we arrive at the point that we are so concerned about our body? We can take a lesson from the grizzly bear. And then being aware of our body, accepting it as it is, we can calm our body. There's tension in our body. There are knots. And when we don't practice mindfulness of the body, then those knots can accumulate over time. It's a kind of trauma. As a child, we may have experienced violence. We may have been in a situation of fear. And in our body, that fear has manifested as a source of tension, a kind of knot. And when we feel that tension or we're aware of it, we want to run away from it. So we turn on the television, we look at our phone, we look for some way to escape from that tension in our body. And so mindfulness of breathing allows us to go into that tension and look at it as a manifestation. It's not me. We tend to think that that tension is me, that trauma is me, that held violence, that held fear is me. But when we have the insight of interbeing, we allow Mother Earth to walk for us, then we see that that tension is just a kind of manifestation, just like the fireweed is a manifestation. Just like the forest fire is a manifestation. When causes and conditions are sufficient, the tension manifests. But when causes and conditions are no longer sufficient, then the tension ceases to manifest. So by breathing in and breathing out, following the in-breath and the out-breath, accepting the body just as it is, we naturally calm the body. So we allow that tension to be released. We're no longer creating conditions for that tension to manifest. That tension is not something static. In the background of our consciousness, day in and day out, we may be nourishing that tension in our way of thinking, in our way of speaking, in our way of acting. But we haven't been aware of how we're nourishing that tension. We're continuing to create conditions for that tension to manifest in our body. So if we learn to illuminate that tension with mindfulness, we see that there are causes and conditions there. And we can, with that insight, we already begin to remove the causes and conditions that have allowed that tension to accumulate over perhaps many years. Maybe we can listen to a sound of the bell and just come back to our body and practice these first 4 steps of mindful breathing, where the in and out of our breathing, following the in and out breath, aware of my whole body, calming the body. And you can smile. It's very easy to smile when our body is calm. But our smile can also calm our body. That is what we call letting the body lead the mind. So our tendency is to want the mind to lead everything, to drive the car. But our teacher taught us that sometimes we can let the body lead the mind. When we let go of our ideas about who we are, what we want, then we can let the body lead. And mindfulness of breathing starts with awareness of the body. When we let the body lead, we are allowing Mother Earth to walk for us, allowing Mother Earth to drive for us, allowing Mother Earth to guide us. We don't need some ideology, some belief, but we let every cell in our body lead the way. So in every cell of our body, there is already the guidance that we need in order to wake up to what is going on. And that is why when the Buddha got the insight that all things arise due to causes and conditions, he touched the earth. He reached with his right hand down and he touched the earth. And he said, "The earth is my witness to this awakening." He didn't need anyone to recognize him as some great teacher, a guru. He just reached down and touched the earth, and that was already enough. So that is a deep awakening that we all can practice. When we practice touching the earth, we re-establish the connection with Mother Earth that is already there, but we just have forgotten about it, that's all. It's just a little bit of thinking. This morning when I came, I was preparing a little bit for the talk, and so I came a little bit late for breakfast, and when I came to the table, I had a moment where I had some sadness come up, because I looked at the table and I thought, oh, there were berries on this table. And but right away I took care of my sadness. I have to full disclosure. We in Plum Village we have a practice called shining light, and just like we talk about mindfulness illuminating itself as well as everything around it, like a candle illuminates itself as well as everything around it. So we have this practice of shining light, which is to allow the collective to share their perceptions about our practice. So it's very deep practice, and it can be quite difficult to listen to other people's perceptions of us, especially when we live with them every day. And shining light is a skill that we can cultivate. And I'd like to share about a few years ago, a young brother shined light on me about a habit that I had, which was when I would come, at that time I was one of the eldest brothers living in that center, and we call Shunha. And so I felt a little bit of responsibility to take care of the lay friends and everyone who's there. And so that idea that I had to be responsible one of the ways that it manifested was that I would always come last to breakfast to see how much food was left on the table, to see if there was enough for everyone. Because I felt if a lay friend who just came for a few weeks or even for the 3-month winter retreat doesn't have enough to eat, well, maybe the brothers don't care, the cooks don't care so much. But if the eldest brother comes and there's not enough food on the table, well then, they'll do something and change. So I would, but I had that idea years before, but I kind of even forgot why I was doing it. And I would just have the habit of coming a little bit late for breakfast. And so sometimes I would come out and there wouldn't be any oatmeal left. And so a few times, more than once for sure, that happened, and I came out and I kind of took the pot and I went into the kitchen and I made a fresh pot of oatmeal. But my way of doing it was not very joyful. And then I would cook the pot of oatmeal and I would then bring it back out, maybe 15 minutes later, and put it on the table and say, "Would anyone like more oatmeal?" I'd say very loudly, because of course we're eating breakfast in silence. And just like we learned yesterday, when we learned to invite the bell, we recite the gatha before inviting the bell. Body, speech and mind in perfect oneness, I send my heart along with the sound of this bell. So that goes not only for the sound of the bell, but also for the sound of our voice. So if our body, speech and mind are not together, if we're not mindful of our body, speech and mind, then we can allow anger to take over. And the words that come out, even though the words might be, if you write them down, they're very, very lovely. But the way you say it communicates something quite different. And so the way that I was saying, "Would anyone like more oatmeal?" the way that I was picking up the pot was not very joyful. In fact, it seemed quite angry and irritated. And one of my younger brothers in the Shining Light session, he mentioned that. And I really appreciated it because he was very specific. He focused in, he didn't say, "You're an angry person." Then what am I going to do? "You're an angry person." Okay, well, what do I do with that? Right? But he was very specific. He said, "I see that when you come out for breakfast and there's not enough food on the table, it's very lovely you make more food for the community, but the way you do it, it creates fear for your brothers." So he's very specific. And that was very, very helpful. When somebody offers us an insight like that, we need to learn how to thank them. Because it's a way of I didn't recognize that habit energy. I didn't recognize especially the effect it was having on my brothers that I was living with. And so I was able to change that habit right away and take care of my sadness or my anger when I came to the breakfast table and there was and all I saw was a lack. And not only that, but I was able to transform my view of the situation. So we hear all the time, are you a half empty or a half full person, right? The glass is half empty or half full. So when I come to the table, I can say, there's not any food left. And that's what I did initially this morning. I said, I came to the table, there's no food left. First, I came down, and I kind of glanced over and I said, well, that table looks a little bit bare. And then I can look out the window and see everyone enjoying their breakfast. And then I can look back at the table and say, this table looks very bare. You see, I'm nourishing an emotion. See, See, by my way of looking at the situation, I'm nourishing an emotion. So this is not theoretical, this is very practical. Where we put our attention, that is a source of nutriment. So because, thanks to my brother who shined light on me, and I know that that particular situation at breakfast, when I come to the table, is something that I needed to work with. So I learned right away to stop nourishing that emotion of anger or sadness right away. I know that if I give my attention in a certain way, then I will suffer. So instead I practiced teaching that our teacher gave us in the form of another kind of mantra, which is, you already have enough. I don't know if you've ever seen that calligraphy. You already have enough. This is a source of happiness. It's a way of arriving at what we call right view. You already have enough. In this present moment, you already have enough conditions for happiness. Right away when you practice this saying, this kind of slogan, you already have enough, you start to see the world differently. So I practiced that this morning, and then what I noticed was there was still a little bit of berries left in the bottom of the silver bowl. There's a little bit of juice. I looked into the yogurt bins and I saw actually there's quite a lot of yogurt still left in here. The spoon has a lot of yogurt on the handle. It's a little bit, I can see why people stop trying to get the yogurt out of there. But I just picked up the container of yogurt and I mindfully gathered the yogurt together, and I found out that I already had enough yogurt left. That there was already enough of the juice from the berries. There was still a little few seeds left there, just to give a little bit of flavor. There was plenty of oatmeal. I didn't need to go in and cook more oatmeal. There were plenty of pistachios and walnuts. So my way of looking at the situation just a few seconds before completely obliterated all of the bountiful food that was there on the table. So my way of looking completely transformed the situation from one of lack to one of abundance. So this is a practice of looking deeply into our mind and seeing the habit energies that are there and learning how to transform it, how right view, which is really the letting go of all views. We can start with a phrase like, you already have enough. That's a view. But that view is only a kind of stepping stone for us to let go of all of our views. Maybe we can listen to another sound of the bell. 2 weeks ago we had a large retreat for young people in Plum village we call Wake Up Earth. And we had about 400 young people coming from Europe, from Asia, from America, it means all of America, and even from Africa. And we practice looking deeply into our present moment on the earth. We enjoyed mindful walking, mindful eating, also working on the Happy Farm, which is an organic farm that we have in each of the hamlets of Plum Village. Young people come for a year to practice mindfulness and get their hands in the dirt of Mother Earth and grow food for the community. And so each group of young people has a chance to go one day and work on the farm, to also get their hands in the dirt, to put the manure out, to enrich the soil. And in that retreat, we invited a number of young activists in the group Extinction Rebellion to attend for free. And I had a few of them in my group. And they are deeply engaged with, at a daily level, with how to transform government policy around climate change by inspiring and creative action. So one of the young men in my group, or a number of them, were involved in an action in London. Most of them are from the UK. And they drove a van full of trees, potted trees, in the back, and onto one of the main main arteries of London, crossing the Thames River. And then they turned it sideways, and then the driver ran away, and then other people came and opened the door of the van and took out the trees and put them all over the bridge. And then they locked the door and nobody had the key. So they stopped traffic in both directions, and they turned the bridge into a garden. So suddenly people came from both sides of the bridge and started enjoying all kinds of joyful activities on this beautiful waterfront property that had just been created in the middle of London. So of course there are many people who are not happy. They're on their commute to work. So a little bit of frustration and anger, but also a lot of joy and creativity. You suddenly have many young people, old people, enjoying the bridge in a way that it perhaps had never been enjoyed before. This beautiful public park had suddenly been created in the middle of London for everyone to enjoy. And when the police come and they're very angry, they encounter joy. They encounter an invitation to come and enjoy the park with them. So there are beautiful and joyful ways we can express ourselves as a collective body when we look deeply into our nature. Our nature as human beings, and see that the police, they are also human beings. I remember the stories from activists from the pipeline in the Dakotas recently, and there were groups forming circles rather than lines as the police approached. The police would approach in a line, but the people were in a circle, the activists looking inward. And so as the police approached, all they could do was join the circle, looking inward. So rather than creating a front, we create a possibility of inclusion. It means we include everybody, including those who have views we don't agree with, those who have views full of hate, full of anger. Are we capable of including them, of seeing the nature of Mother Earth in them? It means that we need to let go of our own views. As long as we hold on to views about me, mine, or myself, there will only ever be exclusion. That is the insight the Buddha had when he touched the earth. He didn't need a human authority to verify his awakening. He just touched the earth. And the earth is my witness. And when we really, when we practice letting go of our views, it's not easy. Because I'm talking about those deep views that identify who we are to the rest of the world, that signal, I am this, I am not that. Then we actually open ourselves up to a kind of radical humanity that transcends the human, that transcends this species, that transcends our idea of living and non-living, even. I call this extinction awakening. The extinction of all views, all concepts. Wow. Even those concepts. Your most cherished ideals. It doesn't mean we lose our aspiration. It doesn't mean we lose what is beautiful, what is most precious. All of that is still there, completely intact. In fact, it opens us up to more beauty, a deeper kind of beauty, a deeper kind of joy, a deeper kind of bliss. So the first 4 steps of mindful breathing have to do with our body. But we've learned already that the body is not separate from our mind. They inter-are. So when our body is calm, we get in touch with the joy of being alive. We no longer are merely, it's no longer merely a fact that we are alive, but we feel the great joy of living on this planet Earth, of walking on this planet Earth, generating joy. Breathing in, I feel joy to be alive on this planet Earth. It's not that the joy was not there. We just didn't recognize it. We didn't allow it to manifest because of our views. We only looked at the breakfast table and saw a lack. It's okay, it's our nature. As human beings, we are looking for what is not quite right. When we look out and we see, we look across the forest canopy and we notice the slight aberration of the antler of the deer, then we know, food. Our ancestors knew to look at that and follow after. So that tendency in our mind is part of our evolutionary makeup, to look at what is not quite right. It's like, where's Waldo, right? It's that joy we feel when we try to find Waldo. So it's quite natural. We don't need to get upset with ourselves, but with training we can actually transform that tendency, because we've conditioned it to look at everything as something that's not quite right, that's not already perfect. Our ancestors knew not to, that tendency to see the antler of the deer was just enough of recognizing the difference, the change in the vista of the forest in order to hunt the deer. But that is, the antler's deer is already perfect. It's already complete. It's not an aberration. And so when we start to see all those things that we feel are wrong about ourselves, about our body, about the world, about our leaders, and we see that it's already perfect, that can be very challenging. But it gives us a deep insight into the collective consciousness, which we are also a part of. So we talk about individual consciousness and also collective consciousness. So again, we can use the image of a candle to represent our individual consciousness. The flame is flickering. Sometimes it's strong, sometimes it's weak, depending on the fuel, the wax, the size of the wick. But that candle is not only illuminating itself, it's also illuminating others. And when you have many candles together, the collective illumination becomes greater. And so we can call that collective illumination the collective consciousness. And so we can, when we want it to be dark and it's too bright, we suffer. And so we want to remove candles. But when it's too dark and we want it to be bright, then we want to add candles. And so we tend to look at the world and what is happening in the collective body of our world. We want to either remove candles or put more candles. So we're not happy with what is going on. But the insight of interbeing allows us to see that we are also participating in that collective illumination. Our individual consciousness is not separate from the collective consciousness. And so what is happening in the world is not separate from us. There is something that is manifesting there in the collective consciousness, and we can learn from that. We can learn something about our own consciousness. We can learn about the prejudice, the violence, the fear, the anger in our individual consciousness, because that is also in some way contributing to the collective manifestation of our leaders, who's in office, who's not in office, which is only a very mere approximation of true power. It doesn't have much to do with true power, but we believe it does, and so we actually invest it with power. The true power comes from our own mind. And when you get that, then you no longer have so much fear. Feel that you are a victim of your government, of your community council, your city council, right? You start to see that you are also just another candle, and that if you learn to free yourself from your concepts, your ideas, to see the basic humanity in yourself and in others, allow Mother Earth to walk for you. Allow Mother Earth to speak for you. like Thay did when he looked deeply and asked, is Mother Earth, are you there for us? Or when Gary Snyder wrote his Earth verse, you allow the earth to speak through you. And she cannot speak because you're crowding your mind with all kinds of concepts and ideas. We are crowding our mind with all kinds of concepts and ideas. And so to allow this joy to manifest, it begins with letting go of our concepts and our notions. And then we touch a deep happiness. The sixth step of mindful breathing, generating happiness. Thay often said, if you're not happy in your practice, you need to change your practice. Beware of a practice that makes you suffer more. If you are practicing correctly, you get joy right away. That is a kind of litmus test. You don't need to go through a period of suffering before you someday in the future arrive at happiness. So we often say the fourth noble truth is the path of happiness. It's not the path to happiness, the path of happiness. With each step, we touch joy. With each step, we touch happiness. Joy is like you are walking in a desert and you see an oasis. You're thirsty, tired, and in the distance you see water. And so this is joy that you are arriving at soon at the fulfillment of your thirst. And so joy can be a great guide in our practice. When we feel joy, it helps us to arrive at happiness. But if we only stay at the level of joy, we cannot touch the lasting happiness. And so a lot of our society today is a kind of excitement, exciting our joy, but we don't actually drink the water. We don't actually slake our thirst. So we cannot completely separate our joy from our happiness. There's also the deep happiness of arriving at the spring, putting our lips to the cool water and drinking and completely slaking our thirst. So that is a way the Buddha used to distinguish our joy and our happiness. So we are not content only with the joy, but we want to deeply drink the water of our happiness. And by letting go of our views, our concepts, letting them go extinct, the Buddha uses this term extinction to refer to the disappearance of our notions, our ideas, and we notice that our body is still there. Even I don't have any idea about who I am, what I'm doing, and yet this body doesn't disappear. The body is still there, breathing in and out. How could that be? It says on my ID, I'm Douglas Bachman. I was born in Wilmington, Delaware. But somehow, without that idea, that concept, I still continue to breathe. I still continue to walk on the earth. How is that possible? Everything has conditioned me to be this person, to have this idea, to say I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm for the environment, I'm against the environment. But those are all still just ideas and concepts. You think I'm a Democrat, so I cannot be happy in a state that is run by Republicans. And then you suffer. Does anybody have that suffering? For example, you dehumanize the Republican. They are the other in your mind. And you cannot see the humanity. You cannot imagine how they could join such a nefarious institution. But when you let go of all views and all concepts, then you look at the world in a much wider way, wide enough to keep on looking. That is allowing Mother Earth to walk for you. And it brings joy. That is to drink the water of our happiness. And we call it the middle way. Maybe we can listen to a sound of the bell. Come back to our breathing. These are long matches. I found, I think, at the backpacking store. And I know that for a flame to manifest, I need to have a number of causes and conditions. So one of the causes is that I have a match, and the match is not wet, it's dry. And I need oxygen. And I also need enough fuel to keep the flame burning. These are all many of the conditions that are already there. So I already have the fuel, there's the wood, it's dry, there's enough oxygen in the air around us to also provide sustenance for the flame. But despite having all these conditions, there's no flame that has yet manifested. But that doesn't seem strange to us. We have so many conditions for a flame, but there's not yet a flame. In our society, we tend to think about only one cause for our suffering. We think, he's to blame for my suffering. She is to blame. My 45th president is to blame for my suffering. But we don't pay attention to all the other causes and conditions that are already there for our suffering to manifest. And we focus only on the direct, immediate cause, which is the motion of my hand to striking the striker. I need also friction and the movement of my hand to allow the flame to manifest. So I think it is Brother Phap Lu's fault that the flame manifests. That is a very simplistic way of looking at the flame. But when we look deeply, we see that that is a very basic way of looking at things, that is not sufficient. We need to recognize that the air is also providing sustenance, that the wood of the stick is also providing sustenance, that the way I hold the match is also providing sustenance to the flame. So, looking into the flame, we can get a lot of insight about our own emotions. And we can do a more first-person experiment with the flame. Don't export your well-being to experts and scientists out there. Nowadays you read news articles and say, scientists say, and then right away you believe it. But you forget that you are also a scientist, and we can experiment with our own awareness and get the insight. That is the tradition that's been transmitted to us through 2,600 years of practitioners. They look deeply into their mind and they see what works and what doesn't work. They benefit from the ancestors and their insight, but ultimately they relied on their own mind to see what works and doesn't work. What generates joy, what doesn't generate joy. What generates lasting happiness and what doesn't generate lasting happiness. So please be a scientist of your own mind. Don't export your sovereignty. So we'll continue with our experiment, looking deeply into the flame. So we can look into the flame and ask, my dear flame, where have you come from? Have you come from the north? Have you come from the east, the west, the south? Have you come from above, below? Have you lost conditions to manifest? And when we look deeply into the flame like that, we say, we see the flame can answer us. We say, dear Thay, dear Sangha, I have not come from the north, from the west, from the south, from above or below. But when conditions are sufficient, I manifest. And when conditions are no longer sufficient, I cease to manifest. So the flame hasn't come from any direction. And when we look into our own body, we may also get that insight. We think, I have come from this country, this place. I have this mother, this father, and they are the only cause of this body manifesting. But that is a little bit limited. When we look a little bit more deeply, we see that many causes and conditions have come together for this body to manifest, for this consciousness to manifest. And that when those causes and conditions are no longer sufficient, then we cease to manifest. But that doesn't mean we come from anywhere, or we've come from nowhere into being something, from nothing to being something, and then from something we become nothing. We know that when causes and conditions come together again, the flame can manifest. And when the conditions are no longer sufficient, they cease to manifest. But if I create enough conditions again for the flame to manifest, I've never done this with a microphone before, holding on to it. So if I don't get caught in my despair about the loss of the flame, I don't spend all my time mourning the death of the flame. But I see that this flame manifests when causes and conditions are sufficient. So when I notice that, then I can allow the causes and conditions to manifest again. And I can allow the flame to be transmitted. And then I have two flames. We have two flames manifesting. And when we look into the two flames, we can ask the second flame, are you the same flame as the first flame? Seems like it's not the same flame. Or we can ask, is it an entirely different flame? It's not exactly correct either. We look deeply into both flames, and the second flame can tell us, dear Thay, dear Sangha, I am not the same flame, but I am also not a completely different flame. And that is the insight of that allows us to transcend our views of being and non-being, of existence and non-existence. So the mother is in the daughter. And when the daughter looks deeply, she can see the mother in her. She is not the same, and she is not entirely different from her mother. That is a practice of deep looking into the nature of the flame, which I offer to you as we close. This retreat is altogether too short. There are so many things that we can look into. But this recognizing how our mind gets caught in ideas of being and non-being, of one cause, of nothing coming from something, and something going back to nothing. When we get the insight of interbeing, we see that this body is only manifesting when causes and conditions are sufficient. And that when those conditions cease to manifest, we are just like the cloud. It becomes the rain, which becomes the water in the soil, which runs down through the stream that the salmon jump up, which goes back to the ocean, which then can evaporate again and become the cloud. And we no longer have fear about losing this body. We no longer are limited by just this body. We see that now conditions are sufficient for this body to manifest. But when conditions are no longer sufficient, we go back to the earth. We go back to our mother. In fact, we have never left our mother. Just like the cloud has never left the ocean. The ocean is still there in the cloud. And when we know how to look deeply into our tea, we see a cloud in our tea. And we no longer have fear of birth and death, coming and going, being and non-being. We allow Mother Earth to walk for us in every moment. And by walking on the earth as Mother Earth, we know if the human species cannot continue, that is only one flame that manifested in the great epic history of Mother Earth. And we no longer have fear about that. We can enjoy the garden of Mother Earth. We can learn how to practice having enough, just walking on the earth, breathing on the earth. And we can live with joy even in the face of extinction. That is not an occasion to fear. That is an occasion to celebrate. In our pride as Homo sapiens, in our very self-centered way of looking at our species, we've created much suffering And we need to go beyond that, to see ourselves as Mother Earth, to see this deep insight of non-self. And that is helping us to heal and transform. I just finished with a phrase I learned from a deep friend, Joseph Lum, who grew up in the Lakota tribe. He taught us the phrase, Mitakuye Oyasin. All things are related. We need to learn from our land ancestors how to get over our pride as a species. That is the true extinction awakening. When we walk on Mother Earth with joy and freedom, we are realizing her deep aspiration. So I wish all of you a continued path of beauty as you walk on Mother Earth, as you allow Mother Earth to walk for you. And I hope we meet again soon on the path. Thank you for your deep listening and your deep practice.